Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by Ronald G. Wayne and Charles A. Sticker, who is Ronald's agent and manager. And we're going to be talking to Ronald about a groundbreaking part of his career that is almost never spoke of. Ronald is an inventor, engineer, historian, and lifelong technologist who was responsible for creating the first electronic slot and craps machines. They were approved in 1971, and they replaced the manual machines and introduced electronic logic into the gaming industry, and they paved the way for the industry that we all know today and take for granted. So we're going to be talking to Ronald and Charles about that. And, you know, I told Charles if he has anything to add, please feel free to speak up and add it. So Ronald G. Wayne and Charles A. Sticker, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, Ronald, why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself, and Charles, if you want to do the same, you can go next.
Alrighty. 92 years old, co-founder of the Apple Computer Company, and a self-taught engineer. I was graduated from the School of Industrial Arts in New York City in 1957. I am now 92 years old. And I taught myself basic electronics in the age of vacuum tubes. And then basic electronics and transistors when they came in, and then integrated circuits. I've been sort of a tinkerer all of my life, and in a variety of technologies. I was a machinist, an illustrator, a tech writer, all as a result of having spent a dozen years as a job shop employee in many, many different enterprises. In other words, I just worked my way through life and on anything that gave me interest and pleasure. And that is how I've run my life. And where shall I go from there, sir?
Charles, you want to tell
All
me
right, I will then step in and say that I've had the pleasure of working alongside this most brilliant individual who I met 7 years ago. I'm an electrical engineer from North Carolina A&T, and I met him while looking at people that might be able to contribute to or assist me with developing some of the intellectual property that I had developed. And I discovered that we had a co-founder of Apple that happened to live adjacent to my city of Las Vegas. So I went over to visit him, and subsequently we formed a friendship, and I've been with him ever since. That expanded interest in very interesting ways. For instance, in 1971, I acquired a patent on on standard, I beg your pardon, on an analog meter. Analog meters known as D'Arsonval pointer type meters that were invented by D'Arsonval in the 1880s. Unfortunately, the D'Arsonval meter had problems. The problem was that the pointer runs on bearings, and every bearing, no matter what you do with it, has a friction. And because of that friction, the pointer never exactly points to exactly the correct reading. And I attacked that problem in 1971 and came up with a type of analog meter with no hunt, no lag, and no hysteresis because the display had no friction. When I presented my patent to Mr. Stiger here, his comment was, "Do you know what you have here?" And immediately he advanced my concept, which had been developed, what, 60 years ago or 50 years ago. He advanced it by several orders of magnitude into other applications that had never occurred to me because he had a spectacular formal education, whereas my education stopped with my high school diploma coming out of the School of Industrial Arts in New York. All of my technology came out of experience, uh, product development, and self-education.
And mine came out of a lot of research and integrated studies that I picked up over the years through various co-ops. I'm one of the original engineers that worked at Saturn, helped design part of the wiring harness and some of the other pieces of the original Saturn General Motors car. I also did some research with NASA, and seeing the way that Mr. Wayne thinks, I was like, are you kidding? This is all you could come up with for that particular device? And we've subsequently moved forward, and we're beginning to get to the stage where we're going to be putting this product out. We've got to do some more prototyping and that kind of thing. But essentially, this will give us certain capabilities that we have never had in measuring technology.
And in another category, I came up with an arithmetic system which enabled me to solve problems in a particular product I was working on for counting coins. And Charles again looks at my patent and says, wait a minute, we can do a heck of a lot more with this. And the net result of his efforts and mine jointly would be to create eventually a computer which would be not only faster than any computer in the world today, but any computer possible in today's technology. This we hope to have in operation and marketed sometime within the next year and a half to 2 years.
Well, Ronald, what problem were you trying to solve when you created the first electronic slot and crap machines? And did you realize that it was going to be such a groundbreaking technology that would shape an entire industry?
Well, actually, I had a fascination with slot machines at my earliest age. I have a pretty good understanding of uh, gaming machines, slot machines, going back to Charlie Fay's first slot machine, Liberty Bell, invented in the 1890s. And it had always been something intriguing to me. And when I became exposed for the first time in my life to casino activities and mechanical slot machines, it suddenly occurred to me, with my background in developmental electronics, that wouldn't it be nice if we could get rid of all this machinery and simply replace it with electronic logic and have a machine that looks and plays and feels exactly like a mechanical machine, except that instead of all the clatter of mechanisms, it's much simpler, easier to build, and easier to maintain electronic system that controls the three reels. I wanted a machine that looked and played like any mechanical machine, but unknown to the player would be electronic logic in place of mechanical logic.
So the brilliant thing about this gentleman is that not only did he figure out a manner to be able to replace gears and fingers and cogs and timers and springs and all these mechanical components with all electronic components. Initially, his concept was to display all this on a frosted glass screen, three of them for the three reels, each of the individual symbols one at a time to, in patterns. And if it stopped on a particular set of patterns, then it would determine what the payout would be and make that payout. But because people were still more comfortable with seeing spinning reels, he shelved that, put it aside, and designed from scratch the logic circuits that are necessary to be able to make that type of system operate. Because even though they did have what's called TTL chips in that day, they had been invented. They were predominantly used in military and other, sophisticated applications, and they were quite expensive. So lacking those, circuits being readily available and the data books on them, he designed his own analog circuitry to behave like the digital circuitry to be able to replicate all the functions that you have in a mechanical machine. That when you pull it under an old spring type machine, the springs and the timers and the clocks that you have inside of that machine behave much like a grandfather clock or a music box, if you've ever seen the little spinning timer that's in there. So all of those things come together to give you a variable chance game that people have long enjoyed playing. And he figured out a manner to be able to, prior to those TTL chips existing, to replicate all of it in digital logic out of analog circuitry.
Well,
Uh,
what gave you the vision to
that was
imagine?
that was the slot machine.
Gotcha.
Then, of course, I was asked to design the logic for a gentleman who had put together a craps table that was all electronic, all to be electronic slot machine, and I did the electronic logic. That was, my goodness, what year was that?
72, 71, 72.
71, 70?
Yeah.
Probably 70, yes. So I had a table that you could play anything on this table that you could play on a live craps table.
So if you've ever been into any of the casinos and you've seen the little dice jumping around on the table, he essentially created that in 1970, 71.
Wow.
Had some interesting experiences getting that machine qualified, because when you get a product like that qualified, it has to go on the floor of a casino. In this case, it went into the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas. And of course, it goes out on the floor for a month's testing. And I was responsible for maintaining this product. The interesting thing was I was wakened in the middle of the night one time to go down to the Golden Nugget and deal with the problem that they were having. A most unusual kind of a problem. It wasn't a failure in the machine, it was something else. There were 24 possible options, and you could bet up to 10 coins on any option you wish to play, as to different types of bets you could make on any live table. The interesting thing was that I get down there and there's this gentleman who was, not to put too fine a point on it, he was 3 sheets in the wind, and he had put 240 coins in the machine. And I had made a slight mistake. I had never considered the possibility that anybody would ever load up the machine with 240 coins, and then he drops in one more coin, and the machine is saying, okay, where do you want to bet it? Of course, all the registers were full. So I had to go in and correct the lockup, release the machine so he could throw the dice. I think he wound up throwing a 7 and wound up with 70 coins for his 241 coins. And then, of course, having spent quite a bit of time training during this thing, when he got his coins out of the machine, he then passed out. This is some of the kinds of experiences I had in developing products like this.
So that both you or your audience will also hear something that is a little unusual, is this guy is actually the gentleman that joined with Mr. Wozniak and Mr. Jobs to form Apple Computer Company. But the credentials that you just heard are what gave him the ability to be able to perform at that level.
Well,
Amazing.
I was a polymath at the time. That's somebody who was skilled in many fields. So when I was asked by Jobs and Wozniak to assist in founding their company, the Apple Computer Company, one of my tasks was immediately to draw up the founding contract, which I did, much to the astonishment of Mr. Wozniak in particular. He'd never seen anyone who wasn't a lawyer sit down and type up a three-page partnership agreement. He was quite astonished at that.
At the time that he met the gentleman, he was 41. Mr. Wozniak was 25, and Mr. Jobs was 21. So both of them were astounded by the things that he was capable of being able to do.
Let's take a quick break.
In Kansas, blind vending operators are vanishing without a trace. No bodies, no witnesses, only silence. Detective Michael Miguel thought he had seen everything, but this case pulls him into something far darker. A web of institutional corruption so deep it was never meant to be uncovered. When vulnerable blind people disappear and bureaucracies close ranks, one question remains: who will fight for justice? As Miguel digs deeper, he uncovers a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of power, a system that exploits the very people it was designed to protect. The truth is buried in paperwork, hidden behind closed doors, guarded by those who have everything to lose. Some conspiracies hide in plain sight. This one hides in the dark. Iron Cane Media presents The Blind Conspiracy, written by Mikhail Battles Sr., available now on Amazon.
Well, Ronald, what gave you the vision to imagine electronics and the gaming industry when the gaming industry wasn't even ready for it at the time that you introduced it?
Well, I had always thought, how do you simplify things and make them more secure, more reliable? And machines wear out. Electronics can run for far longer before anything of consequence happens. It's just a simpler, easier, smaller, more compact mechanism to perform the logic than all of the machinery that goes on inside a slot machine. It was just simpler and therefore less costly. Therefore, it was possible to design and build machines that were simpler, easier to maintain, and as I say, less costly and more reliable. That's what it came down to.
I'm also then going to throw this in that when he landed in his spacecraft from some other planet and implemented this foreign technology into it, no one was ready for it. So in addition to not being ready for it and being so far ahead of its time, he was far undercapitalized, which is something that we hope to be able to change for a lot of inventors going forward as our new mission once we get established and set up. He didn't have anywhere near the capital that was necessary. One would have needed at least $1 million even in that time to have effectively competed in that business against the entrenched players, because quite frankly, who wants to switch from tried and true mechanical to electrical in 1971? We don't even have VCRs or microwaves running on computers.
And as a result of the fact that this was a unique system and more difficult to market than I thought. And as he said, I was undercapitalized. I had formed a corporation called Cyan to do this work, and it did not succeed. Now, being a corporation, of course, I could actually have walked away when it failed and simply left everybody holding the bag, but I just didn't have the kahunas to do that. So I bought back every share of stock for what it was paid for, and I paid every debt that was owed by the company, by the partnership, or by the corporation, 100 cents on the dollar, which was a very traumatic experience. And I had to regain my psychological self-confidence. So I decided to take on a project. And the project I took on was in the film 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Disney. They had created an image of Jules Verne's Nautilus. That vehicle always intrigued me, and I decided to undertake the task of building a replica model of Jules Verne's Nautilus as depicted in the Disney movie. My model, however, was 7 feet long, and it took me a year and a half to put it together. But it was a labor of love. I had a ball putting that thing together. Of course, I got 2/3 of the way through it and began to ask myself, when this thing is done, what the heck am I going to do with it? And I finally wound up donating it to the Maritime Museum in San Francisco. This was all done 50 years ago, and they have had this thing in storage for the past 50 years. And I was able to go down to Pier 45 where they had it stored and observed it, and they had done a magnificent job of preserving it. Now we're looking at the possibility of putting the thing into a proper case and properly installing it into the Maritime Museum.
So basically, the follow-up then to that is that yes, we will be very much hoping that people will come to his website, ronaldgwayne.com, and he's established a 501c3 nonprofit, and we will be setting up there soon to receive donations. But our goal is to be able to build it a proper case and some signage and that kind of thing, so that this 7-foot replica that has details both inside and out and lighting can be properly displayed and viewable by everyone. Currently, it is stored in a warehouse that the Maritime Museum has. Yeah, exactly.
Pier 49.5.
Yes.
San Francisco.
But it's been in storage, climate controlled, for literally 50 years. He donated it in 76, and they had it on display for maybe 6 months to a year. And ever since then, it's been in cold storage.
Well, why do you feel like this groundbreaking part of your career, Ronald, has been undercover and not talked about for so long?
Well, I've never particularly made much of a dent in public affairs. So I've I spent my life doing whatever amused me at the time, because that's what fits the philosophy of my life, which is, for example, whenever younger people would approach me and say, what should they do for a profession? My answer has always been the same. Find some profession that is so interesting that you'd be willing to do it for nothing, and you'll never work a day in your life because you'll be having too much fun. But I gained the position of chief engineer at Thor Electronics as my final employment before my first retirement. And that was in, I think it was in 95 or something like that. And I was chief engineer with them for 16 years. And to be candid, as since I was the chief engineer, I had the keys to the facility, and so I would go into the office literally every day of the week. Sundays, holidays meant nothing to me because, as far as I was concerned, I was having so much fun. I just My boss came into the office one day on a Sunday, saw me at the drawing board, and said, "What the heck are you doing here, Wayne?" And I said, "What am I supposed to do? Sit around the apartment, listening to my Harvey's Garden?" I was just having too much fun. And this is what I recommend for anybody to do if they want a well gratified life, is do what you enjoy doing, and you'll feel that you led a productive and gratifying life.
So another couple of things that also should be said with regard to Thor is that Thor, he also continued to work on slot machine development, but at this time it was past the, I'm gonna call it, opportune window to really get in, and the entrenched players that were, completely soaked in money made all kinds of moves, including insisting that all future slot machines have microprocessors in them. And Mr. Wayne never really particularly learned how to work with microprocessors. So at that point, he decided to throw in the towel.
Well, that wasn't the only reason. I really have no faith in a slot machine that is microprocessor based. Every slot machine that is qualified by the commission, they check it inside and out, and every possibility of seeing how can the game be built in a fraudulent manner. And they can deal with the electronics, they can deal with mechanical machines, everything, and have been doing so since gaming started in the state of Nevada.
But 31.
Depending on where you work. Yeah. Okay. But the problem is that if you go into microprocessors, you've got another problem, and that is, where is the game logic, where tricks can be built in, and it's in the logic within the microprocessor. And if you try to get an outline of the game detail, the game logic out of the microprocessor, and you call out the program, you get a whole bunch of ones and zeros. And what does that tell you? Doesn't tell you a thing. So the machines can possibly be gaffed by the operator and do all sorts of tricky stuff. And that was the thing that drove me out of the slot machine business.
The rules of the Gaming Commission are that the player may not come up with any method that is allowed to cheat the house, nor can the house, if they advertise what the actual odds are on the game, cannot be allowed to do anything that would cheat the player. So in the case of a microprocessor, as a designer of microprocessors from Digital Equipment Corporation, you can't design a microprocessor. You allow me to design a microprocessor that I can't get into in several different ways that you can't detect. So therefore, they're all gaffable is what it amounts to.
But that's the only slot machine that they will qualify.
So what revolution do you guys see upcoming in the gaming industry? Basically, like, what is the next big thing that you guys see that's going to be introduced in the gaming industry?
Well, it depends upon where you are. If you're in the state of Nevada, you can get machines that are with built-in programs that gaff the machine, and nobody would ever know about it.
What we're planning on doing is we actually are looking forward to being able to reintroduce what we call nostalgic gaming, and we'd like to be able to set up in some casino in downtown we're looking at a few that would let you come into a place that has all of the attendance and that kind of thing in period clothes, and you could also dress in similar fashion and play with actual silver dollars.
In other words, you'd walk into a casino of the 1920s or 30s, the casinos that you may have seen in movies. Older people like myself would be walking into nostalgia. Younger people would be walking into things they've seen in movies, but never experienced themselves. That was the last interest that I had in the gaming industry.
Well, is there any final thoughts or anything else you guys want to say to the listeners before we close this out? Anything that I left out that you want to touch on?
Yes, actually one, and that is that because of the exact situation that we find ourselves in, which is that I'm comfortable, but in other words, I don't have or a lot of resources like to the tune of what it takes to actually get some of our business ideas going. And I know that other people have lots of good ideas that they've come up with over the years. We would like to be able to start up and plan to start up a foundation that will fund inventors for a share of what the profit is out of it if the product actually is taken to market. But we would like to be able to supply the inventor with all of the extra pieces that they need so they have the highest probability of both retaining ownership and control and being able to see their product all the way through to production.
Expand potential for people who are not financially able to manage it on their own without such help.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, RonaldGWayne.com. Check out everything that Ronald and Charles is up to and gonna be up to. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible, especially upcoming inventors. And visit www.curveball337.com to keep up with all things living the dream. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Ronald and Charles, the people out there love you, especially those gaming people. And thank you guys for all that you've done. And thank you for joining me.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.